Hey there guys, this is Flamzeron, aka YouTube's Tasuke. It's been a while since I've made one of these really long, lengthy videos talking about my favorite franchises, but I've yet to do one on Soulcalibur, and I've been kind of planning this one for a while, so I feel like I should do it and tell you guys what I like about Soulcalibur. I've done one for Tales and Kingdom Hearts, I think, and Sonic and Mega Man and Dragon Ball, and Dynasty Warriors, I think, was the last one I did. And this one I wanted to do just because Soulcalibur is one of my favorite video game franchises for reasons that I'll get into as I go into each game, as well as talk about the future. As you've seen in some of my other my thoughts videos, like in the Brave Soldiers review, I'm gonna throw in gameplay footage of each game just to kind of show you guys the game, because like I said, I feel like it's better if I show you the game instead of just showing pictures. I think that's more enjoyable too, personally. But also I just want to go ahead and apologize that if some of my thoughts and the entire video just sounds kind of unorganized, because I recorded each section separately, but also I recorded them on different days and out of order as well. I recorded the majority of them on one day and then the others on another day, so it's just a 2-day process, and I think I did an okay job for the most part, but I just wanted to go ahead and be upfront and say sorry if it sounds a little awkward or unorganized. But enough of those little poopy stuff. Why don't we jump right into it? The first game we're going to talk about happens to be the first Soulcalibur game. Go figure. It's called Soul Blade, or Soul Edge as it was called in Japan, which I guess is fitting because in this game, Soulcalibur actually doesn't exist. I got this game later on. It was actually the latest one I got, I think, before Soulcalibur V. But this one, it's the first Soulcalibur game, so we can't really say, technically being the first. I'll use technically a lot during the actual Soulcalibur section, but it doesn't really play like Soulcalibur that much. I mean, it's a little similar, but it plays more like a mediocre 3D weapon fighting game. And there's not even 8-way run. I think there's a sidestepping thing. I don't remember. Of course, I'll probably figure it out when I actually record my footage, but am I going to correct myself? No. The mode is it's like Weapon Master, except this one, it's literally is you collect weapons as you beat new enemies. So it's an okay game to start off with. It's obviously overall not the best, but I would only get this game if you just kind of want to collect one of those legendary PlayStation games, Mega Man X4 or something, or Tales of Eternia, Clock Tower, Tales of Destiny, of course, and then friggin' regular Clock Tower and Soul Blade. I would consider this among them. And this one even has a nice little theme song, and this one, I'd collect it for collecting, not necessarily for playing. I mean, it's not a terrible game, but it's when you look at the other Soulcalibur games, I personally would rather play one of the others. The game, this one is also kind of hard. In my opinion, or it got a little hard. I was able to make some progress, but I find this one actually kind of hard. Personally, that's just me, but that's really all I can say about this one. I'm not nearly as far as in this one as I am the others. But as far as characters I like to play as, I mainly play as Huang, or Huang, or however you like to say his name, the original Chinese sword guy. Except in this one, he uses a Chinese blade, the Shanghua weapon. Except he fights more like a more rigid, basic Mitsurugi. Mitsurugi, I think, used 2 katanas, I believe, or had the ability to use 2 katanas, and he also doesn't have his. He looks a lot younger. That's something about Mitsurugi. He tends to age as each new Soulcalibur game comes out, which I think is cool. But yeah, Soul Blade, first game, but other ones are kind of better. You could consider the next game in the Soulcalibur series Soulcalibur, just plain Soulcalibur Uno, the real, actual first Soulcalibur game, because it's more like the Soulcalibur that we know and love in comparison to Soulblade. And the version that I'm going to be showing is the Xbox Live version, because that's the only version I have. One of the first Xbox games I actually got, and I was glad that it did, because I finally had a reason to play something other than Vesperia and Fable on my Xbox. But this one sets the standard for pretty much all of Soulcalibur. It introduces the 8-way run and whatnot, the battle system, the unique battle system about it. I say unique, but I mean there is a combo system to it, but I do like how you can kind of, it's more like a freeform fighting game, I think. It's kind of hard to explain. I feel like that it's almost like you make your own combos in a way, based on the way it's set up. That's just me, and that's one of the reasons why I enjoy it over other fighting games, that and its design with like the medieval and the whatnot. And of course a lot of people play this in the arcades and on the Dreamcast. I remember there was a movie theater that I would go to and I would play it and I was kicking butt. But I primarily played on the Xbox 360, which is the only way I can play it right now, because I don't have a Dreamcast, but I plan to get one soon because I want to get the extra features. But the game itself, it's decent. It didn't really last that long for me though. And I feel a little bit of the same way with Soulcalibur 2. The main difference with Soulcalibur 2, which I'll get to later on, is that I feel like it has more to offer. But good old OG Soulcalibur is a pretty fun game to play and pass the time, I think, and it's very popular. Like, if not for Soulcalibur 2, I feel like the original Soulcalibur is probably the fan favorite. Of course, as I'll mention later on, my personal favorite is 3, but, and I say that as if I haven't mentioned it yet, even though I'm recording these out of order. But Soulcalibur, there's not really too much I can say about it, really. It doesn't really do much for me. It's a good game, but it doesn't really add anything that hasn't already been seen from my perspective. I mean, it's the second Soulcalibur game, technically the first, considering how it plays, so its job is not to break new ground. Its job is to set the standard. But, and I guess from that standpoint, it does its job. I mean, if you play this after Soulcalibur 2 through 5, then obviously you'll see some characters missing. I mean, there are plenty of mainstays, and Siegfried is also in this one. So, the game is it's decent. It's definitely one of my favorite games to play on my Xbox, and of course when I get a Dreamcast, I'll be playing it a lot on there as well. But, you know, it's a decent piece of game, and I would definitely recommend it for downloading. It's only on Xbox Live, though, as far as digitally goes, unless you want to emulate it or buy an arcade cabinet for over $1,000. To be honest, the only character I play as in this game is Huang. He's the only character I play as. And since he's the only character I play as, I figured I would just show some random matches or so, or random matches and whatnot. But and of course the Xbox version has achievements, which are pretty useful. There's even an achievement for just looking through the gallery. And of course there's one for doing a really complex move of Ivy's, which I did. But you know, other than that, I don't have all the achievements because I'm a pussy and I don't like playing hard games. But this one is definitely worth checking out, especially from, like I said with Soulblade, the idea of checking out one of the legendary games of the past, you know. You know, like Final Fantasy VII or Legend of Dragoon or Morrowind or other games out there that a lot of people really enjoyed, and of course at some point we'll start saying some other games later anyway. Soulcalibur Uno, decent game, goes and plays it. I play as Huang. Huang, why aren't you in other Soulcalibur games, you little shit? The next game on our list, Soulcalibur II, was actually my first Soulcalibur game, and I got it for the GameCube, so I got to play as Link. This game was the first to have guest characters in it, like Link on the GameCube version, Heihachi on the PS2 version, and Spawn from the Xbox versions. Currently, I only have the GameCube and PS2 versions, so sorry you won't see any Spawn's footage in this little video. I will definitely show him some later when I eventually get either the Xbox version or Soulcalibur II HD, which I will also touch on during this bad boy. But since this was my first Soulcalibur game, I didn't really know what to expect. Its combat system, I actually, thinking from the perspective of someone who's never played Soulcalibur, I actually liked it. I thought it was really easy to get into, because I wasn't really into fighting games, because I feel like they were more technical than I would have liked. But Soulcalibur, you know, it was nice because it had combos, but it was almost like you kind of build it yourself in a way. I mean, I know there are actual like coded in combos you can do, and the reason why I decided to play Soulcalibur 2 was because I kept hearing so much about it, and I'm just like, well, I'm gonna play it, and it has Link in it. I wasn't really into Zelda, but I was at least familiar with Link. So, I mean, it was a nice little way to get into the series. I think I kind of think of it in an interesting way, because it's almost like going to a foreign country with a friend versus going to a foreign country by yourself. You know, by yourself, it might be a little intimidating because you're on your own, so you kind of have to do a little more work to kind of figure things out. But if you're going with a buddy, they're in it with you too, and depending on that friend, they may know a lot or they may be scared, and you can bounce ideas off of them. That's one way to think about it, and that's kind of how I see this game with Link. I jumped right into Weapon Master as well. Weapon Master is probably one of my favorite modes in Soulcalibur history, and I like it just because it's like a little mini story. If they ever bring it back, they should do the character customization that they're gonna bring in Soulcalibur 3, which I'll get to later on. But played it first on the GameCube. It was a pretty fun game. My main experience with it was just playing through Weapon Master. But yeah, this one, I feel like, looking back at it, I feel it was just kind of the next big step in the franchise. I don't think it really broke any grounds, not to me at least. It's still a good game, and of course it's one of like the fan favorites when it comes to Soulcalibur. It's either the original, or the original being Soulcalibur, not Soulblade, and this one. Heck, Soulcalibur II HD is now out on PSN and Xbox Live, and it has both Heihachi and Spawn, but no Link, because only, not on Nintendo. But this game introduced some characters that I really like to play, like Cassandra, Yinsung, and Raphael. Characters that I play as to this day. And pretty much all of them, save for Soulcalibur and Soulblade, since they're not in that one. Or those, rather. But yeah, of course, I eventually got the PS2 version. Primarily because I wanted to... This was before the HD version, so I didn't have any real way of experiencing the other guest characters. Plus, I wanted to get it on PS2 because I like PS2. And in the footage, I'll show both the GameCube and the PS2 version, just so you can see both sides. And sorry that you don't get to see any Xbox Spawn, but I'll show off some gameplay maybe on my second channel in the future. But overall, this game I liked it. And of course, Huang's not in this one, but Assassin is in it, which is pretty close to Huang. I don't remember if he was in Soulcalibur 2 or not. I think the arcade version. I don't think he was in the arcade version. He was in 3, which I'll get to later on. But I remember this game had some cheap tactics. Like, if I ever got stuck, I would switch to Necrid because he was just this giant powerhouse. And there's also, Raphael with his little... You'll see that a time or two in his little combo when I play as Raphael. So keep an eye out for that if it hasn't already come up. And if it has, well, then rewind if you missed it. rewind. What is this, a VHS tape? But overall, you know, I liked it. It's a decent game. I don't go back to it that much, though. Mainly because I'm too busy playing 3 through 5. But, yeah, this one, solid entry, I would say. I don't have too much to say about it, even though it was the first one that I played. Mainly because, you know, I mean, it had Battle Theater and it had the character bios that I liked. You know, where they show the model of the character with their theme song and like a little field and like a level that they would be in with like a little biography and whatnot, which I like. And of course, they have one for Link, and he's played by Nobuyuki Hiyama, who plays friggin' Siegfried and whatnot. And that's probably one of his bigger roles next to Hiei and Vague and Link. But, or at least at a time, because he's not Link anymore. But, and I think a lot of people probably got this game on the GameCube because of Link. In fact, even played it because Link was in it. I mean, Link is a very popular character, but, you know. It's almost sort of like the Symphonia syndrome, where, like, you get into the rest of the series and you try to get other people to play, but you're like, I just want to play this version. You know, it's kind of like that a little bit. And what I mean by that is that the obsession with Soulcalibur II kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth, because I feel like the other ones are a bit better. It isn't like Tales, where other games are marginally superior, in my opinion. With this one, you know, I can see why, especially in comparison to Soulcalibur III, because Soulcalibur II is a much better balanced game, at least the home port version in comparison to the home port of 3, because the arcade version, like I'll mention later on, is balanced. But I'll get to that later on. I'm going to say that a lot. These aren't really scripted, so. But Soulcalibur 2, decent entry, and it definitely a good one to start with if you've never played a Soulcalibur game before. If you want to play one of the older ones, it might just be a lot easier just to play 5 or 4, but decent one. As far as people who I played as, well, obviously Link. I have sampled Heihachi, and he's okay. Assassin I also play a bit sometimes, just due to the similarities of Huang. Also play as Raphael and Xianghua and Yunsung. And Cassandra, ooh, she is my girl in this game. I rock with her. She is like my main person. And Cervantes I also play a lot as well. But Cassandra, she's like my best character. She's one of my favorite Soulcalibur characters, too. She's so awesome. Cassandra, man. Cassandra. And now let's move on to Soulcalibur III, my favorite Soulcalibur game. And let me tell you why. I guess to start off with, introduce character customization. I'm going to be kind of jumping around topics a little bit. But me being a writer, I have a lot of original characters that I would love to put into games if given the chance. And now I was going to get to do that in Soulcalibur, which I was really excited about. And I played the demo that came with the PlayStation magazine. I remember I ended up getting 2 because I didn't want to wait for it to come in the mail. So I played it in the demo, and I liked it. It seemed kind of hard. But as far as the character customization goes, it was actually okay for the time. It didn't have too much, or it didn't have everything, but it had an okay amount of stuff. And I was able to make a few characters of mine. As far as the difficulty, though, since I mentioned it earlier, this game is notorious for being not very balanced, at least not compared to Soulcalibur II. It's definitely playable. It is another one of those fighting games where you may have to use the constant throw tactic, and if you don't know what that is, it's where you just keep throwing your enemy over and over and over. So this game definitely had some balancing issues, but if you can get past that and get really decent at the game, then you should be able to do fine. This game had a story mode too, which I liked, actually. It was nice. Nice getting a little bit of info about the characters, what they were up to and whatnot. And they let you branch off and do different things in the QuickTime events. They had their place, and in the world of Soulcalibur. Though like every other Soulcalibur game, there's no real... The game doesn't really present an actual flowing plot as far as like what character does what. You kind of have to make your own judgments and like follow the clues and whatnot and figure stuff out. I'm sure there is a actual story to it, but one thing that I want to mention about the characters really quickly while it's on my head, because characters, yeah, they have characters in this game. Who'd have thought? The characters who were introduced in Soulcalibur II, they return. This game has, for the most part, the same cast, save for like the guest people from 2, Charade, and they throw in some other people. I heard Dante was going to be a guest character. I'm a little sad they didn't include him, because that would have been cool. That was probably the one thing this game was lacking besides balance, a good guest character. But the characters returning from Soulcalibur II, it's weird because I don't know if it's just me, but they seemed like their personalities were getting more embellished. Like Cassandra was being, it was more apparent that she was like a child. Yun Sung, it was pretty apparent that he was supposed to be kind of cocky. And Raphael, you know, he's a vampire now, which a lot of people hate, but I don't really mind it that much. It's different. It's character. But I don't know. It's like it's almost as if Soulcalibur 2 was like these blank slates, and looking back at it, I can kind of see the 3 characters I mentioned in particular as kind of blank slates, because I don't remember them having too much to their personality. Granted, I didn't read their character bios in Soulcalibur 2. But also with characters, this game also marks the return of Siegfried as a regular character, so the story is once again progressing in that standpoint with Siegfried. He's finally freed of Soul Edge's control, so you get to play as him again. I think he was like I think it was him whose story mode I played first. But and then there's Chronicles of the Sword, which was really fun. That was actually a really fun mode, because I like tactical games, but I like the kind of tactical games that are about, like, you know, towers and like building your fortress, you know, like stuff like Warcraft. I like those kind of tactical games. I like, you know, Final Fantasy Tactics and Fire Emblem a little bit as well. But as far as my actual preference goes, I tend to go more towards Warcraft 3 particularly. But so Chronicles of the Sword was a nice little touch, and the little mini games they added into the game was also a nice touch if you just wanted something different to do. But and then as far as going back to characters, this game brought back Huang. Yay! This was the first time I'd actually seen Huang. I was like, oh, this guy's kind of cool. And I'm going to kind of touch on this now. And I'm recording these out of order, so I might forget if I've mentioned this in a later video or not. But a lot of people seem to complain, and this is more of like a general Soulcalibur thing than just Soulcalibur 3, but a lot of people seem to hate now in 4 and 5. They don't have custom styles, save for Devil Jin and 5. And though to be fair, in Soulcalibur 3 they weren't really custom, because they did belong to an actual character. I think they developed this game like that intentionally, where I don't think they were comfortable with having a style not tied to a character, or they wanted some way to have it programmed into the game cleanly without, I don't know, maybe they felt like they couldn't do it cleanly or whatever. But yeah, so this game is like the standard Soulcalibur game, but what makes me really like this one, makes it stand out above the others, because it is a bit outdated by other Soulcalibur standards. Even though Soulcalibur 3 is my favorite, 4 and 5 do seem more updated and have better balancing. At least 4 does. But the reason why Soulcalibur 3 is my favorite is because it had so much. It kept the character bios, which are going to go away in Soulcalibur 4. I'll get to that in Soulcalibur 4 and 5. So you can still read up on the characters while looking at their little pose or whatever. Had the battle theater, which I like because sometimes when I'm bored, I just want to sit down and watch characters fight. They had the mini games. They had a story mode and an arcade mode. And they had like quick match if you just want to do like a quick, like short version of a arcade mode. And also they had Chronicles of the Sword. I think I mentioned that already. And in the story mode, I'm starting to mention stuff over again. But basically, this game just had everything that I wanted. And like even with the roster, they had almost everybody, even characters that didn't even really count, like fucking Arthur. Arthur was a friggin' replacement for Mitsurugi in Europe due to racism, I think. But even then, they threw him in internationally anyway, which is kind of funny. So he's actually in the Soulcalibur games now, along with Mitsurugi. The only characters this game wasn't missing were like Charade and Edgemaster, I think. But they replaced, Edgemaster and Charade with Olkadan, so it doesn't even really matter. It's more about just the character itself at that point than the specific play style, since, they just copy other characters. But, with that in mind, this game, I just, I go back to it even to this day, because I still haven't finished Chronicles of the Sword. My memory card, my file actually got corrupted, but it was corrupted in the way where I could still play my file, but I couldn't save Chronicles of the Sword. I was able to fix it by saving in another slot, or making a new file. I was able to save it, and I was able to re-get progress and redo progress in Chronicles of the Sword. So, and this is like a newer thing. It's at the point where it's casual gaming instead of actually trying to, play a game for the first time or whatever. But overall, Soulcalibur III just had everything. And yes, it is outdated and a little unbalanced, but I mean, of course it's going to be outdated. That doesn't mean it's bad. And also, the arcade version rebalanced the game to where it played better, as well as, I think, changed the styles of not only Huang, but also Li Long, and I think maybe another returning Soulcalibur OG character, I think. So, even those who wanted to play as older Soulcalibur characters like Huang or Li Long, they got that. And this was the first game where Huang showed up as being one of my favorite, and ended up being one of my favorite characters. Like, even his second costume, it's like, it's a very unique mesh. The outfits you can't actually find in character customization, because with the bonus characters, you can roughly recreate them in character creation. That's sort of their, so they're technically just pre-made custom characters, but in fact a lot of them are, because a lot of them are from Chronicles of the Sword, with the exception of Huang and Li Long and whatnot. But it's still nice to see them coming back, and like I said, Huang's second costume was, for the most part, roughly original. It was more like his original costume as opposed to the way he looks now, because he and Li Long did get updated designs for this game, but overall, I really like this game. And speaking of the custom characters, I also liked how in cutscenes they would use them for like NPCs. I thought that was nice. But it's one of my favorite Soulcalibur. It's like my favorite Soulcalibur game. And of course it was the third Soulcalibur game, and my first, like I said before, was 2. So this was kind of the next step into getting into the series. You're like, okay, you had played this one, now let's see how you do with the new one. And of course this one I really, really enjoyed. Not to mention it, since it's only on PS2, it came with the Nintendo or Namco Transmission, I think it's called, DVD, which had a trailer for Tales of Legendia on there, which that was nice. Got a little sneak peek of that, because that was like the big game I was thinking about back then, Legendia, because it was about to come out in English. Though overall, Soulcalibur 3, even though it's unbalanced and of course obviously outdated, it's my favorite Soulcalibur game, and if you haven't played it, I would definitely recommend it. As far as who I play as in this game, I play as Cassandra, Cervantes, Huang, obviously, Keelik. I also play a little bit of Maxi, Raphael. I played a bit in his little cheap move. It still kind of works a little bit, I believe. Xianghua and Yinsung and Siegfried and a little Sophidia and Nightmare. I'm all over the friggin' place. And of course, styles I use, you know, Luna. You'll get to see some of my custom people in this anyway. But yeah, so with Soulcalibur 3 being such an awesome game, you know, my expectations were actually pretty high for Soulcalibur 4, so of course they're going to live up to those expectations, right? Right? Well, sort of.